a game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Trevor Scott, and with me, as always, is Ben Slinger.
Welcome. How's it going, Trev?
It's going pretty well.
Good.
We've just finished our improv class. We're ready and raring to get into this week's episode.
Yeah. So let's do it.
What are we going to do?
We're going to do some click pitch.
Cool.
This is a game where we each have a random word generator in front of us. And on the count of 3, 2, 1, click, we're each going to get an adjective and a noun. And we're going to throw them at each other, make some sort of game design out of it, and then do it again once that comes to its natural conclusion.
Awesome. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, click.
Yeah. Processed enjoyment.
Ironic outrage.
Ironic outrage.
Now, is this real irony, or is this
Alanis Morissette irony.
Alanis Morissette irony?
Which is just like, not like annoying.
Just coincidence.
Something annoying happens. Well, let's see if we can come up with something actually ironic. So, for processed, for some reason, I can't get off some sort of processed meat.
Mm-hmm.
So, is the irony, is this like about a cow who's a butcher or something? And all the other animals are outraged because how dare you traitor, cutting up your own brethren.
But I keep getting in my head that it's their wedding day and it may be a little bit rainy.
It's like rain and the cow serving meat.
Okay. So, cow serving meat, butchering up other animals or only beef?
Yeah, is it too gross if it's
on the nose?
Yeah, if it's actual like cannibalism or serving up their own species, or is it just other animals?
Just other animals.
Okay.
But you get that weird lamb that keeps on coming in for like roast lamb. The cow's kind of like, ugh, this doesn't seem quite right, but
okay, so we're essentially just exploring like the classic kind of anthropomorphic world where animals act like humans, except what happens when there's a butcher shop in this world? And just the taboos around, well, you can order other species, but if you order your own species, it's weird.
Yeah, and there's a big sign just like sitting up there saying, order any other species but your own.
Yeah.
No, there is no beef. Stop asking.
But what about for the sheep and the pigs? They don't get to eat beef? Not from this butcher shop.
No, they only get to eat
each other. Chicken.
It's only pig meat and chicken. No, everyone can eat chicken. Like, even chickens can eat chicken.
Well, I think the chickens are still dumb. It's only the like higher level mammals.
Everyone can eat chicken and fish.
That's the butcher shop motto. All right, so what does this game look like? Is it a cartoonish isometric view of this butcher shop with conversations happening as people come in?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
So is it a management game in which you're managing the abattoir out the back, or is it a where if a customer goes to order like lamb, you just lead them out the back and they become part of the
well, you do have
part of the feed for tomorrow.
You do have to wonder, like, well, I think that's part of the lore of this world that we need to figure out. Like, in a world where a butcher shop serves lamb and bacon and pork and not beef at this one, but other ones might, just because this one happens to be run by a cow. Like, how do they get their meat? Is there like a deal with the the fucking
old age
cemetery? Well, so they only serve mutton and lambs that died in horrible accidents.
We only have sustainable meat in that, like, we...
Or is this a world where there's essentially like an organ donor system that if you die, you agree to be given up to the butchers?
I'll leave my back bacon to Geraldine's butcher shop on
5th and Main.
5th and Main.
But my pig butt.
And I leave my ham hock to Clarice Starling, the bird.
And I leave my ribs to my wife for the wake. She can serve them up.
To all the non-piggy folk.
Is this a kind of noir-ish detective story where you're coming in to figure out like where some of this meat is coming from? Essentially, like you've traced to this butcher shop that they're sourcing meat unethically.
Yeah, I do.
Or do you play
I like the
other
idea
side
that
of
you're a health inspector in the fact that maybe certain meat has been tainted from the hospital. Like they didn't catch the disease that this animal had before they donated their food, their bits to all the butcher shops.
Yeah, there's a sheep that
I'm just imagining that in the hospital there's a butcher on
staff.
on staff, ready to get in there and start carving up the second they die.
Is it something around like if you run a butcher shop, you can get like it's a lottery, or there's like a schedule
for those that don't have wills that can be read very quickly. Then you just get divvied up.
Yeah,
the on-site butcher, butchers you down and
it gets
sends you out to market
to the local butchers.
This little piggy went to market. Yep.
All right, so there's a
that's the name of the game. This little piggy went to market. They had a disease.
A lamb hawking story. I don't know what's the hard-boiled detective, the parboiled detective. Is that a thing you do to meat? I don't know.
Yeah. So I like the idea that you're a health inspector. You're going around. You're trying to trace back who may have bought this bit of meat.
Well, I think what's happened is essentially like it's clear that someone is selling meat where they didn't sign over their bodies, right? Like they didn't have a butcher donor card. Their family is now wondering like where the hell their body is because they want to, bury them in their traditional family grave or whatever. But the body's disappeared. And yes, this particular body had some sort of disease that can be definitely like they're the only person
transmitted
in all
meat.
The hospitals, who had this. And so it's clear that someone has sold them as meat.
Yeah. This is really, really dark. And I'm just trying to think of how to lighten it up.
Prancing sheep, children, piglets, all the cute little animals that are going to eventually be eaten. I assume there are no humans.
By lambs and cows and
horses,
alligators. They're big meat eaters. Like,
oh yeah, I mean that's the butcher's main customer is all the carnivores out there. Bears, bears are big on fish. That's more ethical because they're dumb.
Yeah. When you go to like the veggie store, do you also see like beans and all those sort of things as well? Like,
oh yeah.
Or do they just eat grass?
No. I think there's the veggie store, and that's where all the anthropomorphic carrots and lettuce shop. There's just a similar thing going on there.
But their head just gets bitten off straight away. Like, as soon as they start showing any sign of anthropomorphism, they just get their heads bitten right off.
Yeah, we can't let those vegetables get too smart.
It's an ethical nightmare.
Jesus, this is dark. So are you just going around to the different butcher like, is it sort of you're just exploring this world, visiting different butcher shops, or you've tracked it, maybe at the start of the game, you've tracked it to this specific butcher shop, and so now it's like unraveling the relationships and what's happened here.
Yeah.
I guess at that point, it's sort of just a bit of an adventure game.
Yeah, it's a bit of an adventure game, bit of like CSI sort of, maybe you've got little tools that you can detect traces of the disease or something like that, like something in the blood, like
you could
shows
have
up on
little interlude bits where you have to spray something on the meat. Gross. All right.
This is unusable now. Oh well.
3, 2, 1, click.
Rarest comedy.
Continental when? So continental breakfast.
Yes.
Because comedy makes me
Which
think
is the worst type of breakfast that you can get at a bloody hotel.
Why even bother?
It
Why
sounds
even
good.
bother?
It sounds good. You know, continental breakfast.
A couple
that
of
sounds
shitty
amazing.
pastries and...
And you get dry cereal and toast.
Yeah.
It was like, this is like the same sort of breakfast I could get at home.
Don't bother serving breakfast unless you've got eggs. At the very least. Minimum.
They say, sorry that you couldn't have it. And you open up on an envelope and there's like 2 raw eggs that have just been opened up inside and some bacon. It's like, oh, that was the...
Who sent this? The hotel? They just don't cook
hotel,
it?
yeah.
They
said, sorry that you had to leave so quickly. But you did pay for your breakfast, so here you go.
You get home, it's just
a white envelope
in your mailbox, rotten eggs. All right, is this a comedian on the sort of the hotel circuit? What was your other word?
Rarest.
Are they trying to are they hunting down a joke of some sort?
The elusive joke. The only joke that could make them laugh.
The one funny knock-knock joke.
No, I like the idea that, you know, they're traveling from hotel to hotel and they're over this whole thing.
Okay.
And one day they come across I'm thinking that, you know, it's a drunken night. They wake up in the morning and is the best breakfast they've ever had.
Okay.
And they know that it was a continental breakfast and it was one of the hotels on the tour. They just can't remember which. So it's like the rarest continental breakfast in that it was actually good. So now they're going back through trying to find this hotel.
Okay. So do you have criteria? Do you literally have all these different continental breakfast buffets and you're like, okay, get the toast. No, it's too dry. It's not this place.
It's white. It's not sourdough. I remember there being sourdough.
Yeah, and so you've just got these things that you're ticking off, and you have to find the place that ticks them all off. And in the meantime, I guess you're like, there's probably some personal story of growth that happens.
Yeah, but it's all about this breakfast. Really.
Well, it's all related to the breakfast. So, they find the place where they did have the right type of milk. They had the full cream, they also had the skim milk, and they had the special, half cream milk. This wasn't that hotel. They just happened to have the same milk. There were a few other things that didn't tick off, but that half cream milk just reminds them of, you know, their pessimism and how they see everything as half full of cream.
Yeah.
But
in reality, what they're looking for is the love of their life because they know that they met them and spent the night with them the night before.
Well, I think then, yes, maybe things start coming as you find the different aspects of this breakfast, kind of like that classic book, Possum Magic. Different parts start reappearing in your mind, because it's like, okay, I found the half cream milk. Oh, of course. She, you know, was wearing a dress that was pure white that night. Or, do you know what I mean? It's kind of bringing back these things. So yeah, you can find this love of your life who had disappeared that morning, and you made all these connections that morning with the breakfast that you ate, and that's actually why it was the greatest breakfast of all time. And that was actually when you do
it was just a normal breakfast.
Yeah,
it's this. I'm picturing that every single hotel that you go to, it's the same breakfast. It's like.
It's just not right. So is it
the cereal's just too dry? It was not this dry.
So it's actually fruitless. You actually never find it, but along the way you discover all these things and make these connections.
It's the journey all along.
And remember, and just at the end when you're completely
in debt,
you've been staying at all these hotels for the last 6 months. You haven't found it. You've eaten more, you know, stale croissants than you would have ever wanted to in your life.
You've taken out the second mortgage on your house. You've hit rock bottom, and then across the breakfast buffet, you see her walk in, and she's the manager of this hotel.
Yeah, I like that.
And she sees you, and she remembers you straight away, and
she remembers you straight away. Funny man. She never had your name.
I couldn't remember your name.
Well, that's it. She's been looking up comedians online and searching you out because she didn't know your name. All she knew was that you were a sea-level comedian traveling the hotel circuit. Mm-hmm. And so she's been off or going around hotels
I think you leave it just as they start talking and all that sort of stuff. You don't need to go into the...
Don't go too deep. But I do love that idea of while he's been out experiencing all these terrible breakfasts, she's been out experiencing all this terrible comedy, trying to find him. They've both given up at the same time.
So many racist jokes.
Oh, I love it. All right. 3, 2, 1, click. Enormous Elite.
Civilian Handbook.
Civilian Handbook?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is some sort of like future war, space war of some sort.
Yeah.
A Star War, if you will. No.
Yeah. Pulsar War.
Yeah. A pulsar battle. And so you do, so there are these elite soldiers, that the government has genetically engineered, fighting the war. But you...
Ooh, and you're one of these elites who now that now
that the war is over...
and your team has been disbanded, you've been given a civilian handbook.
Yeah. Now
and
you're
you've
a colonist.
got to go back into...
Well, because the war was over, they made a treaty with the Glargians and... They've, established the boundaries, and it's like, well, we don't need all these soldiers anymore, but we do need colonists on these new frontier worlds of this, new land that we've negotiated for. Mm-hmm. And so, are you the only elite in this colony, or are there others?
I think there's others, but you seem to be having trouble adapting. Whereas when you see everyone else, they seem to just be adapting better.
Right. They're just loving their, picket fence, white picket fence.
Yeah, I'm imagining, Clibian, who is your best mate, he's going gangbusters, He's got a great job.
He's got 2 kidlings already.
Yeah. You don't know where he got them from. You think that they're his, but you can never be sure with Clibian. I mean,
they have the same... chitinous armor patterns on their backs as he does. So,
so you're sure that they're not clones or anything like that? But
they've at least got some of his DNA in there.
DNA, yeah. There's a rather small quantity of them, but
I think they ship some DNA pods with each colony, so that those who choose to raise the next generation can, crack them open.
Crack open a cold one.
Crack open a cold one. Literally, because they need to store it in liquid nitrogen. And, they're very quickly into the incubation pod and grow themselves a kidling. But you haven't found the urge for that, and you haven't really, you haven't found the desire to nest like everyone else seems to have.
As you're walking around the area, you keep on noticing, some weird things happening. Some of the local civilians are seem to be pointing at you and all this sort of stuff, and then when you sort of turn back around, they're just going about their normal business. So you think that something's potentially going on in this area, and I'm seeing that, it might be good for the elite to actually have a little bit of nervousness, bit of, expecting something to be going down, right?
Yeah, he's got some paranoia happening. You have your sessions with the colony psychiatrist, who's there to sort of make sure everything is going well with everyone's mental health, and they're just encouraging you to forget about the past and settle into your new life, but you just can't do it.
And just as you are one day, and you're walking out of your new job across the street, you swear you see a Glargian, and you know that they're not supposed to be in this area or in this sector.
Yes,
it's against the treaty.
Yes. Okay, now I said Glargians. So is this a sub race?
Oh, you come out, end of the day, end of your shift, you come out, and across the road you see a Glargian.
Yes.
And they're not supposed to be in this sector.
They're not supposed to be there. That's part of
the treaty.
That's part of the treaty.
They're supposed to be in their own sector, and it's a blink and you miss it sort of thing.
No one else is reacting.
I'm seeing that it's rainy. The sort of lightning lights up, and you see the outline of a Glargian, and you can tell because of the tentacles off their head and all this sort of stuff, and their face gets lit up, and then a bus passes by or some sort of vehicle, and then they're not there anymore. And it's sort of like...
Space bus.
Space bus. How else do the Space Public Transport
Authority
work?
PSPTA. Yes. So what happens next?
I like the idea that you go to Clibian and you basically say, I saw a Glargian.
Yep.
I need you, good buddy, to
believe me.
Come with me
and
believe me, because if they're in this sector, things don't seem right. Something's going to be going down.
Something's going down. They're going to break the treaty. They're spying on us.
They shouldn't be in this sector, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And he sort of, brushes it off, says, go see the psychiatrist, and you go see the psychiatrist, and they're like, oh no, there's no way that a Glargian could be in town, and they're basically gaslighting you into saying that, what you saw was just a bad memory, like, from your days of the war.
Do you bug the psychiatrist office? Maybe there's a reason, you've got a reason to believe before this, to be paranoid about them. And so, you've got an objective at that point to, like, place a bug while they're out of the room. And so, yes, you leave and you kind of hear them then on the phone with someone like,
speaking in Glargian.
Yes. And they found a way, essentially, to disguise themselves.
Yeah. So is half the town Glargian?
Oh, fully.
Or have Glargians taken over everyone in the town, and you're the only non-Glargian left?
No,
so
no,
third
no.
Third act is literally a Call of Duty sort of running around killing Clibian and the kids and all this sort of stuff, because
that's
they're
horrible.
all Glargians.
No, I think that's too much. I like it more that it is essentially a Glargian conspiracy, like that.
But you're the only one who
the treaty
actually
was not made in good faith in the end, and they've just used it to essentially, now that the human race has stood down their armies and their genetically engineered elite soldiers, they're now infiltrating because they're gonna just take over.
We haven't actually called this town anything, so
yeah. Do you have a name?
No.
Okay.
I think it does need a name. Like it's got to be like a.
It's like a Cape.
Well, it's kind of like when you think of Buffy, how Somerville was, kind of happy, but it was not so great.
Oh, I see. Noglargsheretown.
It's always sunny in Noglargsheretown.
Treatyville. I don't know.
I know. There's just something about having, a regular sort of Terran settlement that just has a Glargian just hidden in the midst. Do you think that maybe the Glargians actually also took over the people who signed the treaty? That's the reason why they signed it. I don't think it came out of nowhere.
I don't think they're actually like body snatching. I think it's more that they've just infiltrated. They've found a way to disguise themselves as human, or as elite soldiers, perhaps. Because they're much larger and they are covered in chitinous armor, which, makes it easier to hide a Glargian in there.
Yeah, and you can just, pull the tentacles back into a ponytail and just tuck it inside the armor.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think they've, taken the place of anyone. I think they just infiltrated as a human to get onto these colony worlds so that they can essentially set up, what's eventually going to be, they're communicating with each other and they're going to attack all the colony worlds at once to basically take out all the elite soldiers because they know they won't be able to grow anymore in time. And this was essentially their back door into destroying the entirety of Earth's armies.
Okay, so does Clibian eventually come on board and save you at the last minute sort of thing?
Yeah, well, we haven't even really figured out what sort of game this is yet, so I almost am picturing this could just be sort of the intro, and then you end up with almost a Gears of War-esque third-person shooter sort of thing where you do end up fighting a ton of Glargians, and
I like the idea that at the very start, it's sort of like that over-the-shoulder cover shooter thing, but you're running around doing regular job, you're bagging groceries, and then you go up to the psychiatrist's office.
I love the idea though, because that actually plays really well into the elite who can't sort of give up the world. You're carrying your groceries and you accidentally hit A near some cover, and he just drops the groceries and goes into cover,
hides into cover.
Yeah, and
holding a cucumber like a gun.
And Clibian's just what the fuck, man? There's nothing here. Calm down. Go and
as you're picking up the groceries, it's your heads-up display is going groceries, ammo 1, ammo 2, ammo 3. Because I love the idea that the heads-up display is always there.
Oh, it's built into their brain. Like, they can't turn it off. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely play with some of that stuff around these creatures essentially built for war and combat now having to...
Oh, especially when you walk out and, you know, your visor looks across the road and actually picks out the silhouette, you know, and it sort of draws the silhouette and then identifies it as Glargian. But then when you go back to look at the logs, it's not there.
Or you're going over it with your psychiatrist and they're like, no, look, it's obviously a bug in your, you know, firmware. There's a shadow of a tree here but you're like, that's not what it looked like. Like, you're sure they've essentially, you know, modified your memory log. And
then he goes, just let me plug this into the USB slot.
Yeah, in the back of your neck.
And do some diagnostics just to make sure that your firmware's all working fine.
Oh, I like that because then I love you've got the heads up display. It sort of starts flickering, doing some weird shit. And for a moment, the psychiatrist like flashes, and you see them as a Glargian, and then it flashes back.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That is cool. And then, you know, when shit breaks loose, then it turns into the cover shooter with all the mechanics that you've had the chance to use at all times.
Oh yeah, it's essentially just an extended tutorial / prologue to teach you all the controls of the rest of the game, which is a cover shooter.
You're mowing the lawn and it's like press A to hide behind the hedge.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Cool. 3, 2, 1, click.
Outlined employer.
Self-skull.
Self-skull?
Self-skull. Yeah.
Okay, so with outlined employer, I'm sort of seeing it kind of like in the last game where they had the inner inner heads-up display. Mm-hmm. You are playing a robot that... You know, your heads-up display will automatically outline people that are talking to you so that your software knows, you know, who's addressing you and will come up with, like, little bits of information as to who this person is.
Ooh, yeah. I like that. I like that. You're essentially... Are you, like, one of the first or the first, like, sentient android, essentially?
Yeah, I like the idea that you're like definitely one of the first, whether you are the first. I like the fact that you may be the first generation.
Yeah, I think
maybe there is a second generation coming.
Yeah, I think you are part of the first generation. It's a very limited run, you know, almost just a prototype run. But there are, you know, there's maybe like 50 of you of that first generation, and they got used in various like corporate settings and research settings, but now the next generation is coming out and it's going to be a much wider release, and they've worked out a lot of the bugs.
Oh, and your end of maintenance period is coming up. They haven't continued like firmware updates. You've got one more firmware update, and then you know and then
you're not getting any more hot fixes.
No more hot fixes.
Okay, so where are you working? Do you think... I was kind of thinking that, like, originally...
I like the idea that you're an office worker.
Yeah, well, I think originally you were, like, there for high-tech research, essentially. Like, your brain could do things that other computers couldn't do.
Yeah, you're a glorified accountant because you're a glorified calculator.
Yeah, but now, like... the next generation's coming in, and also that just regular computers have sort of caught up in a certain way. You've essentially been pushed aside to just a regular office worker.
You deliver the mail. That's all you can do.
Well, I think maybe you've still got... Like, you're still doing some of the same work. Well, maybe not. I guess maybe if you've been made obsolete. Yeah, okay. You're the mail person. Because essentially you're
Oi, mail bot.
Essentially your biggest... advantage now is just that you are a robot that can navigate the world as a human. You know, you are an android that has those skills. Like, your brain power is no longer sought after because everything's caught up and there's new generations coming out. So yeah, you're a piece of property, but you are technically sentient.
Yeah, I like the idea that because you don't need sleep, you only need like an hour to plug yourself in to
like
gather
recharge
and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Effectively, you can work 23 hours a day without a break.
Yep.
Because, you know, and maybe this is the whole thing of, can your character break out of this monotony? And
yeah, so I wonder if perhaps initially these models weren't deemed sentient. They're very good artificial intelligence, but they don't have self-awareness and they don't have they don't have desires or anything like that. But as these new firmware updates have been coming out and they've been improving things and backporting some stuff from the newer models, which are definitely sentient, like that's the whole design, you've essentially gained sentience in that time. Nobody's really aware of it. You're barely aware of it yourself, but you play as this thing then essentially, like I like the idea of, you're playing through things and you get to this point where like no one's around and you're working through the night and you can start exploring, you start reading things, you start, looking at people's desks and understanding more about them. And then when you see that person the next day, like that piece of information comes up, you making more connections than you were before because now you're actually learning about being a human essentially and making relationships.
So I think where the game opens is it's a black screen and then kind of like a CRT sort of clicking on and then everything fades up into view. It goes,
oh, you've got your BIOS booting up and
and basically it's like it's the local IT firmware guy who says, okay, that's it. Your firmware's all been updated and this is your last firmware update. You won't be having any more after this. Go about your business like you normally do. Okay.
Are they saying that to you or are they saying it to like the maintenance guy who...
Oh, maybe they're saying it to the boss, but effectively, you can see whatever firmware version
you see
is.
It's popping up. It's giving you like the updates that were just installed with this version. Like it tells you better understanding of relationships between humans to better serve them, or different things that do sort of point towards what you're eventually going to see as.
Do we actually have in the update list? Like there's a couple of things that didn't install properly.
Oh yeah. So there's like some sort of like inhibitor that was supposed to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, and basically because they didn't shut you down properly, and you can eventually see the video of they just kind of just stuck it in and
it came up
they clicked ignore on the restart.
Yeah, it came up with the warning, in your on your like face display, basically saying like do not reboot until this firmware update is complete. But you see them like they're like, no, I gotta go. I've got a hot date. Hit the button.
Yeah, and basically your inhibitor that was on the previous firmware has a bug in it that basically it's the reason why you now the player now has control and you can do things from here.
Yeah,
and basically the player is learning about the world as your character learning about the world.
I love the idea that at any point you can essentially, maybe you hit tab and it goes into like your kind of mind direct.
A mind palace.
I was going to say mind palace, but I don't think that actually works with the thing. But like the directory of your mind where you can look stuff up about whoever you're talking to. You can look at past conversations, like you've got the whole memory thing in there. The background, like who you're talking, it comes up over the top, but the background goes into super slow motion essentially to show that like you're looking this up in like super high speed.
What I do love is that the OS is like the acronym is SKULL. So SKULL.
Yep. I can only think of killing, but that doesn't make sense.
Self-killing, unidentified League of Legends.
That doesn't mean anything.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just to bring your word skull in.
There's no good letters in there for an operating system. But, that's fine. We'll think of something when we actually write this. Because for those who don't realize, we do actually go through and make every single game we come up with on this show. We've put them all in a vault. We will be releasing them on our 1000th episode, and you'll see all of these games that we've made. Mm-hmm. All right, I like that a lot. There's a lot of fun stuff there. Actually, I really think that could be a cool way to tell that story and be, sort of a bit of a walking sim kind of thing, but with this extra stuff of like searching stuff in your database and that's cool.
Yeah, and just being able to sort of see what's next for your character, like which way you want to actually go. Do you want to quit the job and leave and have a life of his own sort of thing outside of this.
Yeah, well, I think this does all culminate in some sort of decision and realization that, this place is treating me like a piece of property. You start to see the next generation of them come in and they're treated more like human beings because there has been some law or something